Tonight, more evidence that the U.S. was likely behind the strike on that school in Iran. Iranian media says that it killed at least 168 children and 14 teachers. This video shows what experts say is a U.S. Tomahawk missile striking an Iranian Navy base right next to that school. The same day, the school was struck. This weekend, President Trump insisted it was Iran who attacked the school. And today, he appeared to somewhat back off that claim, but he still suggested that it could have been Iran.
I will say that the Tomahawk, which is one of the most powerful weapons around, is used by, is sold and used by other countries, you know that. Whether it's Iran or somebody else, the fact that a tomahawk is very generic. It's sold to other countries, but that's being investigated right now.
You just suggested that Iran somehow got its hands on a tomahawk and bombed its own elementary school on the first day of the war. But you're the only person in your government saying this. Why are you the only person saying this?
Because I just don't know enough about it. I think it's something that I was told is under investigation. But tomahawks are used by others, as you know. Numerous other nations have tomahawks. They buy them from us. But I will certainly, whatever the report shows, I'm willing to live with that report.
But experts tell CNN the Tomahawk missiles are not generic. And while other countries like the United Kingdom and Australia do possess them, Iran does not. But Pete Hegseth is striking also a very different tone from the president on this story. Listen.
Well, we're still investigating, and that's where I'll leave it today. But what I will emphasize to you and to the world is that unlike our adversaries, the Iranians, we never target civilians.
There was a report late in the week from two officials that it was likely U.S. involvement. Is that report false?
I've already said we're investigating.
If you could tell the American public it definitively was not us, you would tell us, wouldn't you?
I would say that it's being investigated, which is the only answer I'm prepared to give.
It is a question whether they would tell us, because the president acknowledged in his comments today that he didn't know what happened. I have questions about why that is at this stage. But also, then he spins this whole false narrative about it could have been anyone, including the Iranians, because everybody has tomahawks, when that's very much not true. I mean, if you're anyone listening to that, how can you believe that they are interested in getting to the truthful answer here?
Well, I will not agree with Pete Hegseth that often, but I think he did give the right response in that interview that this is under investigation. It does have to be looked at. And because when something goes under investigation, especially by the Department of Defense, you have to let the investigation play out, even if there is definitive video. And I think that is important that he acknowledged that. I will say that when I was at the Department of Defense under Secretary Austin, we had a center of excellence that mitigated civilian harm. That was an office that was basically been completely gutted by Secretary Hegseth by I think like 90%. But these were civilians embedded with combatant commands, such as CENTCOM, that would launch strikes and be part of their targeting process. So I'm not saying that is why this strike happened. I think there has to be an investigation.
Why is Trump misleading about it? Because he is misleading about it.
But I hear you. Lloyd Austin was former Commander General of CENTCOM, 4-star General. Yep. Pete Hegseth, Fox News host.
Yes, very different resumes.
Very different resumes.
Decorated military.
Very different resumes.
Decorated
there is
military.
no one.
Can you not acknowledge that the man served?
The man served. Yes, the man served. He
highly decorated.
Not in combat.
Not in combat.
Hegseth?
He wasn't in combat.
Iraq and Afghanistan. I mean, the man served our country.
And he, I think, had a Bronze Star for
his
service.
My point that I want to get back to is that there is a level of competence that the American public is thirsting for that they are not getting from Pete Hegseth. And we're seeing that. When he is up there.
And transparency.
Transparency. That's all we want. We're talking about 160 children that were killed. All we want is an honest answer that comes from you and the President of the United States. This isn't politics. This isn't Lindsey Graham versus Cory Booker. This is just tell us what we're doing, because we have 7 soldiers, as Abby corrected me last segment. We have 7 soldiers who've died. We have 160 children who've died. We understand that this is the fog of war. However, we want a level of competence from Pete Hegseth that we're not getting.
I do think that we are
What
going
is
to
competent about this military operation, in your opinion, in your expert opinion?
I don't. First of all, I never served, and let me start by saying
this is incompetent. I want to know what's incompetent.
No. I think Pete Hegseth is incompetent.
Why?
I think
what's happening?
Because he has an inability to tell the truth.
What did he say? What did he say that was false?
Because we know what happened.
No, we don't. They're investigating.
Well, I mean, look,
Wait, hold on. No.
Hold on.
I want all of you all to go out on a limb right now and tell me that the United States, even during the fog of war, did not kill those kids. Tell me they didn't.
I don't know. They're investigating it, and I'm willing to abide by the results.
I
That
do
is
think,
as she
I
said,
do
that's
think
the
that
right answer.
it is fine and important for there to be an investigation. I actually think Major Garrett's last question might have
Was
been
the
the
most
most
important
important, which is, if the investigation does find that we are responsible,
Would you ever know?
would you tell
So
us?
I think-
Because I think that's what, to me, when I think about the United States military and how we act on the world stage, that is one of the main things that makes us different.
Right. And I think that right now we have to assume, and I'm going to assume, that the U.S. military, because the level that these investigations are handled is like nowhere near any political thing. My thing, I believe that the U.S. military will conduct a very fair and thorough investigation, and they will come up with the answer. I looked at the imagery myself. I think the answer is going to be that we did it, but I don't know because I'm just looking at imagery, right?
But
Just
will
like
they
the
tell us,
Americans are.
Beth?
But I think,
I mean, I know they will do
so
an investigation,
I
but
think
will
that
they
it
tell
will
us?
come out. So if the military investigators come out with that as the answer, if they do not tell the truth at that moment, if they suppress that, we know we are in a completely different
I don't think
ballgame.
anybody has. I don't think
And-
anybody has faith that Pete Hegseth will stand in front of a camera and say that we did this. It was
But mistakes
will
happen
demand it.
in
Did you
war.
call for the same transparency when Lloyd Austin was AWOL? He had his medical issues and was
He
not
wasn't
present.
AWOL. He had a medical
And there was
issue.
an investigation into that
And
that we
there was an
released.
investigation. She was there.
Yeah, I was there. I was
saying she was there.
I was there. We released not only that investigation. We released about the withdrawal. We released about Afghanistan and Iraq.
afterward.
No,
But
we
he's saying Lloyd
released
Austin
every
was fully
single
transparent.
investigation,
He wasn't.
and he took full
Did you
accountability
agree?
and
I said Lloyd
responsibility
Austin
for
was
that.
Did you agree with the president when the president, after all the Afghanistan investigations, judged it to be a raging success, President Biden?
Well, I didn't say. Well, I didn't say that.
There was also-
he didn't say
but
that.
there was
He did
also
not say it was a
investigations-
raging
he said it was a- he
success.
said it was a big
But no,
success.
and he actually
investigations
expressed the
into
solemnity of the
Afghanistan
moment of the withdrawal
and all the failures
Yes.
that
I know,
went
but
into
the- but the
that.
commander-in-chief
so that
still
was
thinks it
that
was
was
great.
done, and that was
I do not think he
investigated.
came out when
So,
the deaths of service
mean-
members were there. When we had deaths of
Talking
service
about
members,
all of them.
saying it was
He checked his
successful.
watch at the remains transfer, didn't he?
I mean,
First of all,
Scott.
Donald Trump literally was talking about ballrooms after six
Yeah.
soldiers died and wore a hat.
I think the most important thing Hegseth said, and all Americans need to know and understand this, the difference between us and the enemy, we do not target civilians. When it happens, and it will happen in war, it is tragic and it is not meant to be. The enemy targets civilians. They hide behind civilians. They fund people who set up bases in hospitals so that civilians are in the way. That's not what we do. An investigation needs to occur. All the truth needs to be told. And we will give transparency to the American people. But there's two parts of this war, our part and the enemy. The enemy targets civilians. Look what they're doing all over the region,
But the
firing
story
missiles
doesn't
intermittently.
end there, Scott. The story is not just we don't target civilians. It is also that when mistakes happen on the battlefield, we
truth.
take accountability for them.
Correct.
That's the important part.
Nobody
So,
has faith. Nobody has faith that this administration.
You're presuming a lot.
well, no, I mean,
investigation is not
well,
over.
listen,
Yes.
I started by asking the basic question: why is the president of the United States misleading about some basic information about who has Tomahawk missiles and who doesn't? Answer that.
Abby, I think the investigation is still going on. I don't know why he said people have other
So,
countries
and then
have Tomahawks,
why
but
is
look,
he saying,
they
as
have
if it
not
is
completed the
fact,
investigation, so why
when
are
the
you assuming they're not going to
investigation-
be honest with the American people?
Okay, so why is he stating, as if it is fact, when the investigation hasn't been completed, that Iran was responsible?
Look, what we do know.
That's why I'm asking these questions,
Yeah, yeah.
because the
And
president
to
is
Scott's
making
point,
false
what we
statements
do
about
know-
something that is
Yeah,
awful.
and it's tragic. It's tragic. Period. It's an absolute tragedy.
Yes.
We also know that Iran funded people who raped and killed young girls in Israel.
Trust me, I understand that
facts.
fully. And there
That's
is
true.
no equivalency between Iran's malignance on the world stage and this. And in fact, it is the opposite of an equivalency. It's actually an insistence on the United States upholding its own standards.
Just have a higher standard.
That's what it is.
the point. We
And
just have
listen,
a-
don't,
we just have
don't,
a- we
and,
just-
and listen,
we have to.
That's not gonna come
But
out.
we cannot. I say this all the time. You know, when you roll around with pigs, you both get dirty, but the pigs likes it, right? But we cannot drag ourselves down to that level of depravity. And all I want,
We're not.
We're not.
I believe that the American public, when you have soldiers who go to battle, who die, deserve truth and honesty and accountability. And that's all I want. And I'm just saying that from my perspective, one that's naive, country boy from South Carolina, right? I don't believe Pete Hegseth and Donald Trump to be honest, because they can't tell you the truth about simple things.
Can I just jump in on what Bakari is saying? Because I take your point on the honesty and transparency into what Abby's saying of like, why did the president lie about this? It's so blatant. Like if Iran had Raytheon technology, that would be a huge problem. I do think that we have to acknowledge here, Raytheon makes the Tomahawks, so I think we have to acknowledge here that Congress has a role to play, and Congress, to the questions about the Secretary's health, the questions about the Afghanistan withdrawal, they also have an oversight committee that can conduct an investigation and can demand records from the department that we also supplied during that time. So I think Congress has a vote.
Laura Ingraham, I think, has been sending a few messages about this directly to the administration, not only saying that there needs to be accountability, it has to be addressed publicly, but also saying that it needs to be the investigation needs to be wrapped up quickly and addressed head on. I think speed is actually important here, because if you wait for the news outlets to do their sort of layman's investigation, you can at least say I know there's going to be a full picture of this in great detail.
I think she's
right.
But
The administration could say more than they're saying now, and they could tell the president to stop misleading. That's the other thing that they could do.
Part of that is that, the president is not on message because someone didn't tell him what the message was. Right. I mean, I don't really, I'm guessing that he's not like willfully blaming Iran when he knows. I just feel like this whole thing is a lot of not really telling each other what they're supposed to say. This entire episode is filled and not well informed. They could do a better job.
All right. Next for us, rising gas prices are sending shockwaves through the United States economy and global markets.